Thank you for joining us today on another episode of the Multipliers podcast. I'll be your host for today. My name is Mehdi, and it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest, Advaita Sharma, partner at the 1%. Adi, thank you for joining me on today's podcast.
You're welcome, Mehdi, and thank you for giving the opportunity to speak with you.
My pleasure. So let's start by you telling us a bit about who you are and what got you into ESG.
I'm Advaita Sharma. People also call me Adi, and I come from a small town in India, in Rajasthan, where the resources are very limited, very scarce, just like here in UAE. And I have always been very close to nature. So even after my education, which was in engineering, I was inclined to a lot of agriculture practices, mechanical engineering, sustainability methods like renewable energy, etc., which we had in the university. Later on, after it, I joined IBM after my engineering, and I was working with a lot of large corporations. But together with that, I always had the sense of responsibility towards the society and community. So with my job, I also founded an NGO, which was a non-profit organization, as you call it here. And that was for the underprivileged kids, and to teach them, to give them some opportunity on doing something for their learnings, get some good job, etc. And at the same time, we were mentoring some privileged youth. So that's how the money was flowing from privileged youth to underprivileged youth. After that, I did my MBA from SP Jain School of Global Management. It ranks 8th in the Forbes, not to boast, but the best part about it was that it was in 3 cities. The course was in Dubai, Singapore, and Australia. So that gave a good global perspective about the life outside India as well, and how the businesses, companies, organization operate. When I came to UAE in 2014, I joined a management consulting firm. I was in the strategy side of it and advising large corporations, investors, flowing in and out of the country and all over Europe, US.
Advising them on what?
Management consulting, strategy side.
Okay.
So it was more about investment pitch deck, business plans, feasibility study, market research, what kind of strategy they should have in the organization. It was going great. No complaints about it. But somehow I felt the need that I have to do something for the Mother Earth. I had to do something meaningful in life. With that, I took on a leap of faith and a journey, which was in Netherlands. I was there for some years, and I joined this Dutch organization. In and out, I was in advisory role there. And I came very close to the nature and sustainability, ESG as a concept, and how the organizations have to perform, be responsible, and still be profitable around it. So that's where the journey started in 2016 or a little earlier. And so far, I'm into ESG and sustainability, where we help large corporations through our organization, the 1% group.
The 1% group.
The 1%, yeah. So this is very interesting name because people do ask like,
why the 1%?
Why the 1%? Are you like those top-notch 1% wealthy people?
Are you?
Maybe not. Never calculated. But I'm definitely 1% happy one.
Well, good. If you're part of the 1% who's happy, that's good.
Yeah. So we say that we are uniting the 1% conscious community to inspire the 99% rest of others for 100% sustainable future. So the goal and the aim is to utilize our resources in a very sustainable way, or let's say in a conjuice way, as we had the talk earlier, so that it could be utilized for the future generations.
Of course, yeah.
And with this, the motto of the organization is to give back to Mother Earth. And we collaborate with a lot of organizations and corporations to make it happen.
We're going to use a lot of acronyms on this episode, right?
Sure.
So let's start with ESG.
Yeah.
What does it stand for? And why is it important?
Sure. So earlier, the term used to be sustainability, which was widely coined, let's say 15, 20 years back, when very few people heard it. Only companies which have been making a lot of environmental impact were doing something on sustainable initiative. Now, let me start with sustainability and then let's come to ESG.
Okay.
So, sustainability as a term is an ability to sustain for years and years and years, right? So, name itself says it all, that how we judicially utilize our resources, our people, our governance, everything. Now, this sustainability as a term brought down ESG as another term, which is basically bifurcation of parameters, how sustainability is measured or defined. So ESG is environmental, social, governance. And that's evident that when we work with corporations on ESG part, then we work on their environmental parameters, social parameters, and governance parameters.
Okay, so if we want to delve a bit more into the environmental, for example, so some people might think that, I have a small company, it's 5 people, 10 people, right? So what is it that I'm doing that is affecting or that's harming the environment? But even small companies, can make a change if they change certain things. That's gonna, eventually help sustain the world. So, what message do you have to people in general about helping the environment? If we just want to stick to the E part of ESG.
Sure. To answer this question, I'll go back to the basics.
Sure.
And then coming to the civilization. And then coming to companies which are small, medium, large corporations, and how can they all be responsible? So when we see human being as let's say coming from Homo sapien or any other kind of form earlier, so we were very sustainable in our living. We used to be hunterers, gatherers, growing some amount of food, eating it, not putting it in the refrigerators for long time, and being healthy, being on the hunting spree. This trend further shifted down from thousands of years, let's say 35,000 of years from Homo sapiens to the human civilization to now industrial revolution, which was 200 years back. Now, when industrial revolution came, a lot of changes started happening in our, let's say, behavior, in our culture, in our food. We started storing the food. We started coming to offices regularly, working from there. And then all this value chain brought some kind of impact on the environment, impact on the social or governance aspects. So when we move to smaller organization as entity level, it is run by people. So the first thing has to start with the people. What change can we make as human in our life, which could be sustainable, right? This is a very classic example of using the coffee mug, which can be used and reused again and again. This is an easy example. There are plastics which are out there in the market which are use and throw, which are not good for environment. They come in our inhaling, they break down into very small pieces. So in that way, humans can make a difference in their own life, how judiciously we use the light, the water. And then when it comes to the organization level, be it small, medium or large, the basic remains the same, right? The basic remains that how an organization can have more discussions around sustainability or ESG.
It cascades from the individual, as you said. So everybody has to care about the environment. Everybody has to care about the sustainability. Everybody has to care about future generations, so on and so forth. And because of that, you should care. So it doesn't matter if it's a small, medium, or a big organization. No, I completely agree with you. And we see it in today's investment landscape as well. So in your opinion, what are the ESG factors that are increasingly crucial in today's investment world? And what implications do they have for investors?
So when it comes to ESG factors which are coming to the investors, I being an investor myself, I also take the ESG factors in consideration. Now, when we see the ESG factors, there are specific reportings, transparencies which have came out due to the regulations, due to the changing landscape of business. So investors do take a good count on the factors which are related to the disclosures, the reportings, which are done by the companies. Now, these could be on the environmental side of it, social side of it, or governance side of it. So this also determines that how much is the risk in the organization in terms of ESG per se, and how much mitigation measures they are taking on a short term, medium term, long term. To give you a quick example, so ESG is a term having parameters which are related to, let's say, how the environmental aspects are taken care of, how the energy is utilized in the organization, right? How the water is used or consumed in the organization. Labor, is it diverse? Are they using let's say, some kind of malpractices into that side? Or what kind of good practices they have? What kind of governance structure they have? What kind of gender equality, diversity they have in their organization? How is the satisfaction of the employees?
This is part of the social stuff.
This is part of the social stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so it gives a very holistic idea about a company. And at the same time, it also gives a good idea about are the companies performing well on those parameters or not. So let's say if a company is taking care of their energy in a very efficient manner, then definitely their profits will go up because their expenses will go down, right? We work with like corporations which have huge energy bills. To give you some examples, like large manufacturing industries, right? They have like 1 million, 2 million dirhams of electricity consumption just in a month time, and sometimes even way more than that for some companies. So if they are energy efficient, if they are using solar, right, that gives them a medium to long term benefit in implementing those kind of factors. And at the same time, the risks goes down.
What risks?
Risk in terms of, let's say, regulatory risk. That how are their ESG factors? Are they really taking care of their ESG kind of parameters? Are they reporting it well? Are they taking any initiatives on that?
So basically, if the company wants to raise money in the future, or if they want to raise debt, or if they want to expand, having a better ESG score helps them get, a wider scope of investors, debtors, or attract the right talent.
Definitely. Can't agree much. So there are specific kind of schemes which the banks or the financial institutions have come up with. These are called sustainability linked loans.
Yeah.
Green sukuks, green bonds, green financing. So the companies, if they have better score on the ESG ratings and scorings, then that means they are eligible for these kind of facilities by the banks in a lesser interest rate.
For example, let's take the manufacturing plant that you were referring to that has 1 or 2 million dirhams monthly in electricity fees. So if they want to come and install solar panels, right? So I would imagine it would cost them a lot of money initially. But then on the long term, if you do an analysis over 10 to 15 years, or the life of the solar panel is roughly around 25 years. So if you do that analysis, which would be cheaper in the long run?
Definitely solar.
Solar.
Like solar as compared to the electricity, usual electricity supply. Solar, of course, because the sun gives abundant energy. Sun gives in one day that much energy, or in a few hours, that much energy, which can be enough for lightning of the whole of Earth. So the energy is free.
So the initial investment is high.
Initial investment is a little high because these are two different business models.
Yeah.
Now the utilities company don't charge initial investment, but they charge you pay as you go.
Exactly.
Right. And solar is an investment initially as your capital expenditure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, after like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you're getting free electricity for next, let's say, 20 years, for example.
Yeah. And are banks here helping out companies who want to take out loans to install solar panels and stuff like that? Or are there any government organizations that are helping in this space? Or
so there are two type of let's say entities or two type of systems now which are helping in this solarization or turning to renewables. One is of course the banks or the financial institutions.
Okay.
And at the same time, of course, with the government push and government regulations,
we just finished COP28 a few months ago. So
yeah. So sustainability and renewables, and coming the financial institutions together was a main theme. There is another level of another type of industry, I must say, which is like coming up, which is like the private companies, which are financing
private credit.
Private credit. They are financing on pay-as-you-go structure. So they would do the investments.
Right.
And we also do that in India because the demand is huge.
Yes.
And what kind of scheme do we have in India is that we would put up the investments and the companies who are using it, they have to just pay as they go. So they don't have the initial capital expenditure.
Right. One of the things that you have mentioned in your earlier answer was the frameworks and the reporting frameworks that investors take into consideration before they make an investment in a company. And some of those are things like GRI, IFRS, TCFD. What do these stand for? I mean, I know IFRS. I don't know the other two, right? I had to Google them. And how do these shape corporate accountability and transparency?
We started with the basics,
Yeah.
how the humanity evolved, how the companies
now
are
we're
taking.
delving in.
Now we are delving in
2024. Let's do it.
2024 technical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'll try to simplify this because a lot of audience might not know the acronyms. And GRI stands for Global Reporting Initiative. And then TCFD is Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. IFRS you already know.
I know IFRS.
And subsequent standard from IFRS is SASB, which is Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. So in these kind of, let's say, reporting standards, as GRI says, it's a global reporting initiative. So it is a very, let's say, holistic kind of a reporting standard, which gives guidelines on environment, social governance pillars, what kind of environmental impact the companies have, what kind of social structure the companies have, what kind of governance structure the companies have.
How are these measured, though? This is a very important question.
Yeah. So measurement of these is in a simple way, I would say, through data.
Okay.
Right.
And data collection.
Data collection. And if I have to make it complicated, then I would say that it has to come from the frameworks, the parameters. So it's more about there are some set parameters, like GRI have like 200-300 parameters, sub-parameters, etc. which the companies have to collect the data, report on those aspects, and then measure the performance, and then see what kind of lacks they have, like, what kind of good performance they have and where they could head. So when it comes to GRI, it is on the global reporting initiative perspective,
Right.
on ESG parameters. And at the same time, there are some sector specific guidelines. When it comes to TCFD, it is more on the task force for climate related financial disclosure. Now, what does that mean is that how's the climate change happening, right? And what kind of impacts would it bring on the companies which are operating in terms of financial risks, in terms of mitigation factors? What kind of scenario could there be, right? What kind of strategic pillars they can take? So these kind of risk mitigations comes from TCFD.
If we want to delve into GHG emissions,
Right.
so we have calculations for scope 1, 2, and 3. Let's talk a bit about GHG and the particular challenges that when it comes to the scope and the technology and the interactive dashboards in this process.
So GHG, again, another
acronym. Yeah, I said at the beginning of this podcast, we're going to have a lot of acronyms today.
Yeah. In fact, when we meet some clients and some corporations, they are always, having hard time. So we just say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right?
There you go.
And GHG is like something on a greenhouse gas emission. So these are the gases which are harming the environment. To give you a quick example, like ozone layer depletion, or let's say global warming, the climate change. These are in a way terms which are caused by the greenhouse gases as one of the major factor contribution, I must say, from the large corporations. Greenhouse gases stands for the emissions done by a corporation. It could be carbon dioxide, it could be methane, SOx, sulfur oxides, NOx, or urea dust, etc., etc. So these are like, a lot of type of emissions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, specifically when it comes to GHG emission, greenhouse gases emissions, in the standards perspective, in the reporting perspective, it is broadly classified into scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Yeah. Now, these are like direct emissions, indirect emissions, right? To give you some examples, like scope 1 falls into direct emission, scope 2 and 3 indirect emission. Let's say if you're running an industry, right, where you are manufacturing, let's say, clothes, or you are manufacturing cement or any other kind of fertilizers, chemicals, then you have to burn some kind of natural gas, you have to burn some kind of fuels.
Yes.
So that causes emissions, which is directly from your premise, from your area where you're operating. So that comes in the direct emission or scope 1 emission, right? Or let's say if you are owning some kind of fleet, transportation, let's say trucks carrying load from A area to B area, which is owned by the company itself, right? The emissions caused by those, will also come into scope 1 emissions, the direct emissions. At the same time, scope 2 emissions are something which are indirect emissions. For example, in that facility, if you are getting an electricity supply, if you're getting you are getting, from any kind of utilities company, an electricity supply. So that is an emission caused by, let's say, your consumption, but that has been produced by someone else or some other entity, right? That comes in scope 2 emission, right? Now, there are other emissions in scope 3, which are even more, let's say, detailed and vast. For example, something which you are utilizing in your facility, but it's coming and supplied from someone else, right? From your suppliers, let's say.
Yeah.
So those are like even indirect emissions, and accounting all of them comes into GHG emission.
Yeah.
So when the companies have to report on what kind of emissions they are making, they report on GHG emissions or greenhouse gases emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3.
And the measurements, assuming it's a little bit complicated, the way how you measure.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So technology have been responsible for a lot of environmental damage. So technology also is responsible for solving the problems.
Good.
So starting with when initially these calculations were done, it was a difficult task. Later on, it all came with tools which are like greenhouse gases protocols, GHG protocol, IPCC, etc. These are some other standards which are used to calculate. The major challenge does not come in the calculations or analysis. The major challenge comes in gathering the data. So it becomes very difficult for organizations sometimes to gather the data of their scope 3 emissions, let's say. Scope 1, it is a direct one, which is on their premises. So they may have records. They would have usually records of how much, gas they have burned there, how much fuel they have consumed. Scope 2 also is in their records, usually. Like, for example, the electricity supply, I gave the example.
Right, yeah.
But scope 3 are quite vast. So, for example, let's say a manufacturing company. Again, because I'm taking the example of those because they are like very heavy operations kind of industries, or airlines per se, So one of the thing would be coming from one supplier, automobile for that perspective, the cars we drive, which have huge machineries, huge parts. Parts are coming from A, B, C suppliers to, let's say, companies like Volvo, Volkswagen, BMW, etc. So imagine in such kind of manufacturing industry, there would be so many thousands and thousands of suppliers.
In every aspect of your life. So if you're buying a product from Amazon, so even the packaging, right, that it comes in, it was produced in China, for example. It was shipped here, okay, and then it was wrapped. It was, they used it to package the thing. It was then delivered using a motorbike or using a truck, and then it arrived, and then it got to my office, for example, using the elevator. So all of those stuff used energy.
Right. Absolutely.
So in every single aspect of our lives,
right,
we're using energy. So which is why my question was about, how complicated it is. So yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Want to ask, now AI is the new it word. Everybody's using AI. So how can we use AI, or how does AI, how is it going to enhance ESG adaptation and predictive analytics, automated reporting processes? Are these going to get affected with artificial intelligence? Are they going to improve? Are they going to be more efficient?
So yeah, again, coming back to the same point that technology made it, environmental harm. Technology is the one which will solve the problem.
Yes.
Whatever we can measure, we can control. Whatever we can't, we can't. So measurement is one of the part where technology like AI or machine learning, or let's say softwares, are very handy. So we have some specific softwares in place which helps the organization to map the whole departments or organization into a platform. So the organization or the people don't have to run to one department, to this person, that person, to this country, that country for gathering the data. Because of globalization, companies are everywhere, right? So this platform helps into gathering the data with one click. And that becomes easier. So more accurate the data is, more accurate the transparency of the report is, more efficient the systems will be, and at the same time, more better the organizations can see the data into dashboards, visualize it, and then make the performance indicators accordingly. AI as well, in the same way, can run through the data, which are like in huge quantity of data. Imagine the number of suppliers, etc. And for all companies, the suppliers are different. Type of suppliers are different. Type of data is different. So AI can make that process faster. So we are using the AI technology as well to make those kind of strides in a faster way, in a machine learning way, in a one click button way, so that it's at the convenience, it has the accuracy, and then human can have some checks and balances, review, assurances, etc. around it. Now, at the same time, when I told you about climate risk, and mitigation, we also are utilizing our tool for scenario analysis. Now, what does that mean? To give you a quick example, that there were flood in UAE, but for UAE specifically as a country, the whole year's rainfall is not that much, which we got, in one day. So it's
Exactly.
more than that, as you rightly said. So in that perspective, now imagine if you own assets, if you own buildings, what kind of risks are those buildings having? Will that area be flooded, right? Those all balances we can run through beforehand through the software, through our climate risk tool, and we can tell the scenario that this building will be affected more, building will be affected less. This has the basement, so the effect or the capital effect on that will be this much more than to the one which is having no basement. What kind of geographical or parameters are there, like wind, etc., through which we can do even predictive analysis, that weather might have these kind of possibilities in future in terms of rain, high rise of water, or high rise of temperature, and then these are the risks.
So this tool already exists.
Exactly.
Okay, very good.
And utilized as well.
And utilized as well.
Right.
That's very good. So climate change is real. There are a lot of naysayers out there, but it's definitely real. And what do you have to say to those naysayers about climate change?
So, yes, climate change is real. If I go back to my roots, which is Rajasthan, the place where I come from, and even a small town, I learned swimming not in swimming pools, but a lake.
Okay.
And they used to be very fresh water, nice water. We had wells. Sometimes if we ran out of water, then, we used to go to the well also, get the water out of it, and then have that fresh, nice water in summers. Unfortunately, those are all dried up. The lake is there, but the water is not at all good for, any human or even animal to jump into it. And there are a lot of plastics in it. There are a lot of polythene bags. There are a lot of, waste into it. These are some things done by a human, definitely, right? Throwing the plastic, throwing the waste. So being responsible is very easy. Now, coming to climate change.
Sorry, but before we go into climate change, why should people care? I care, you care. Some people don't. Some people, when they're using this new paper straw, they're, oh my God, what is this? Where's that plastic straw? And like, it's just still drinking. It's not the end of the world if you're using a plastic straw or you're using a paper straw. So some people genuinely don't care. But so why should people care?
Why should people not care? We have the only planet, we have the only place with us, right? And if we do not care now, then definitely our children will say that, what have you left behind? It's a mess, just like our home. If we keep throwing like plastic, cigarette butts, this, that, everything there, right? And even cigarette butt takes like a year, 2 years to decompose, long time. A lot of animal consumes it and dies. It's impacting all of us, because that particular barbecue you would have done in the desert, let's say, and you would have left the polythene there, you would have left the plastic there, it would disintegrate, come back with the air into your own nostrils and to your own lungs, and create cancer, which we are seeing in this generation.
It's rising,
keeps on rising, right? So
that's why you should care.
Yeah, why shouldn't we?
Care not just for the future generations,
for your own health,
but for your own health first.
Karma comes back.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Yeah, definitely.
And we see that,
Yeah.
So climate change is very real. It's happening. We saw that from the flood or the rain happened here in UAE. Torrential rains are happening, cyclones are happening, rise of temperature is happening across the globe, forest fires are happening. So climate change is definitely there. Now, is it the cycle of the environment which keeps on moving? Or is it the humans which are the main culprit behind it? This is a very debatable topic. But at the same time, what we humans have done, we have accelerated the climate change. And we have disturbed the balance of the nature, which nature will reclaim, because nature don't need us. We need the nature, right? Nature would bring one or the other thing, right? Because of the disbalance, and that will be impactful to us. So to all the naysayers, I would say that, it's impacting us all. Be it you are the one person who are driving the car and in flood, your car is damaged or your home has been flooded, you will have the impact, or the example of health and risks.
Yes. And other than talking about this and raising awareness and, whatever you're doing through your company, how are you, in addition to all of that, action-wise, right, in terms of like digging on the ground, how are you giving back to Mother Earth?
Right. So thank you for asking that, because we started with the basics, then we went to the industries, we went to the individual responsibility, corporations, what kind of emissions factors, etc., their reportings, how it helps the companies, investors. Now, when it comes to our organization, we have the motto to give back to Mother Earth. And how are we doing as an organization is through raising awareness, as you rightly said, helping the organizations to achieve those kind of goals, taking them on a right path, which itself is a huge task, because companies has been in the mindset of just seeing the profit. Being an investor, I would also see the profit. But at the same time, what kind of short, medium, long-term risks are there because of their people not being happy, because of the environment not being taken care of well, resources not being utilized, governance structure not being good. So that task, we are there in making them aware, shaping them, telling them about the risk, and then having a lot of dialogues, just like what we are having today. So that's on the enterprise level. On a personal level, whatever I could do, I do that. For example, whatever the food waste happens in our home does not go to the garbage. We have a composting system, which was also designed by us and have been manufactured here in UAE and installed in hundreds of locations in UAE, including at my home. So it composts the soil, and then that is utilized in the villa for agriculture purpose. And then at the same time, we do something called agroforestry in our home, which is like growing a lot of fruits, vegetable, herbs in a very circular way, in a food forest way, that whatever waste is there, like the mango seed does not go to the waste. The mango seed is actually planted there, and the mango tree is actually there.
You need to teach me how to do that.
Sure. Probably in the next podcast, I can even take that
A
session.
demonstration, sure, by all means.
Sure, definitely. And we were also featured in Khalij Times for that, for creating a circular food forest in a permaculture way, in a barren land. So this is like a two-way good thing for us. We get to eat healthy food, which grows there in front of our eyes, and we don't throw our organic waste, right? Being responsible into not throwing our other waste, non-organic waste, is also another way which we are giving back to Mother Earth. So yeah, personally, I have dedicated my whole life to this mission. And
that's beautiful. We need more people like you to care, and you need to keep on fighting the good fight, educating, spreading the word, the awareness as much as you can. And we're very glad that you gave us your time today to come on the podcast and to talk about this very important topic, which I think we need to talk even more and more about. We have a tradition on the podcast, a last question, and if your life is a book, on which chapter are we on now?
we are at the beginning chapter.
In the beginning, wow. That's the first, actually. Okay.
We are just at the cover page.
Right, really?
Because
is it being designed or not yet? You have the title?
We have the design team which designs the report,
Okay.
so they are designing.
Good stuff.
But yeah, every second we are born and reborn. All the cells, millions and trillion cells in our body are continuously, like you get a itch, right? Sometime it's something like your cell is gone, destroyed, and the new cell is come up, right?
Is that what an itch is?
That's a scientific,
Really?
yeah, biological way.
Okay, wow.
So that's the reason we start getting gray hair, we start getting wrinkles.
No, gray hair is fine.
Let's call it silver.
A silver fox, yeah.
So every moment, every minute, every second is new. Let's rewrite the book every time.
Absolutely brilliant. And on this note, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We should do this again.
Thank you, Mehdi. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And your smile is always very inspiring. Your aura is great. And it's always a good learning and discussion with you.
I learned a lot from you today.
Thank you, Mehdi.
Thank you for joining us today. Until the next episode.